Okay, picture this. It's the year 9 AD. The Roman Empire is at the absolute peak of its power. They are, for all intents and purposes, an unstoppable force. But then, in a dark, murky forest in what we now call Germany, all of that expansion comes to a screeching, bloody halt. This is the story of how Rome's worst nightmare became a reality.
That right there, that's the cry of a devastated Emperor Augustus. The story goes that for months he would wander the halls of his palace, banging his head against the walls and just repeating that phrase. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the scale of this disaster. It was a loss that shook the very idea of Rome to its core.
So, the big question is how? How does this even happen? We're talking about an entire Roman army, not just defeated, but completely annihilated. The answer has fascinated historians for 2 millennia, and it all comes down to a story of misplaced trust, a brilliant, chilling deception, and a betrayal so perfect it changed the world. What we're diving into is known as the Clades Fariana, the Varian disaster. And believe me, it's not just another battle. This is one of the most significant defeats in all of Roman history. A single event that didn't just cost thousands of lives, but literally altered the future of the empire.
Just look at that number, around 20,000. That's the rough estimate of the Roman soldiers, along with all their support staff and families, who were killed or captured in the span of just 3 days. An entire army just gone, wiped clean off the map. This wasn't a setback. For the Roman military, it was an absolute catastrophe.
And this really brings it home. That number isn't just a statistic. This is the memorial stone for a man named Marcus Caelius. He was a centurion in the 18th Legion, a real person with a career, a family, one of the thousands who marched into that forest and never, ever came out.
Okay, so at the very heart of this disaster are 2 men. On one side, a powerful, confident Roman governor. On the other, a Germanic prince who was playing the long game. And their relationship, well, that's the key to understanding how everything went so terribly wrong.
So let's meet our players. First, you have Publius Quintilius Varus. He's an experienced Roman politician, a governor, but by all accounts, he was way too confident, maybe a little arrogant. And then you have Arminius, a Germanic prince, sure, but he was also a Roman-trained military officer and, crucially, a trusted advisor to Varus himself, the perfect insider.
And you see, this is what made Arminius so incredibly dangerous. He wasn't some stranger from beyond the frontier. He was basically a product of the Roman system. He was taken to Rome as a kid, raised and educated like a Roman noble, and he served in their army. He knew Roman tactics, their strengths, their formations, and he knew their weaknesses, maybe even better than they did.
And this right here gets to the absolute core of it. For Varus, Arminius was a poster boy for Roman influence, a loyal ally who was helping him bring Germania under control. But while Varus saw loyalty, Arminius saw the one perfect chance to liberate his people and destroy their conquerors.
So how did he actually pull it off? This wasn't some lucky break in a battle. No, Arminius orchestrated every single part of this disaster with cold, calculated precision. It was a masterpiece of deception.
The plan was actually kind of simple, which is what made it so brilliant. Step 1, he spends months, maybe even years, getting close to Varus, becoming his right-hand man. Step 2, he completely makes up a story about a small rebellion happening somewhere off the main road. This was the bait. Step 3, he suggests a shortcut through the forest to deal with it, a route he knows is a death trap. And then, the final move. He and his own Germanic troops ride off, saying they're going to rally support. What he's really doing is getting his own warriors into position and leaving the Romans completely blind, with no scouts.
And you can see the sheer genius of it right here. The Romans were supposed to stick to a clear, known route. Instead, Arminius convinced Varus to lead them right into this narrow corridor of land, a total bottleneck with a wooded hill on one side and a huge swamp on the other. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to form up, and no way out.
Now here's the part that's just mind-boggling. Varus was warned. Arminius' own father-in-law, a guy named Segestes, came to Varus and told him, flat out, this guy is betraying you, it's a trap. But Varus was so completely convinced of Arminius' loyalty, so sure of his own judgment, that he dismissed it. He just ignored the warning. It was one of the most catastrophic mistakes in military history.
So the trap was set. The legions marched right into it. What came next was a 3-day nightmare, a running ambush that systematically tore the most disciplined army in the world to pieces.
And as if the terrain wasn't bad enough,
The heavens opened up. A torrential rainstorm hits, turning the entire forest floor into a thick, sucking mud. Roman shields got waterlogged and heavy, bowstrings became useless. The whole army, a column stretching for nearly 15 kilometers, was stuck, vulnerable and completely exposed.
You have to understand, this environment took away every single Roman advantage. The legions were masters of fighting in formation on open ground. Here, they couldn't form a line. Their heavy armor just bogged them down in the mud. Meanwhile, the Germanic warriors, with their light gear, used the trees and the terrain to their absolute advantage, just striking and fading back into the woods.
It was death by 1,000 cuts. For 3 straight days, the attacks just never stopped. Javelins would fly out of the trees. Then warriors would charge out, hit a small part of the column, and then just melt back into the forest. The Romans were in a state of total chaos. They couldn't fight back effectively. All they could really do was die.
By the 3rd day, it was all over. The legions were shattered. Varus, seeing that everything was lost, facing the ultimate disgrace of his failure and the certainty of capture, did what many Roman commanders did in that situation. He fell on his own sword.
The news of what happened in that forest sent a shockwave across the entire Roman world. The battle was over, but the fallout, the consequences, were just beginning.
The 17th, the 18th, and the 19th legions simply ceased to exist. And in this really powerful, almost chilling move, the Roman army never used those numbers again. Ever. They were considered cursed, a permanent black mark on the army's honor.
And this slide right here shows you the single biggest result of the battle. Look at the map on the left. Before the disaster, Rome was pushing to conquer territory all the way to the Elbe River. Now look at the map on the right. After the battle, that ambition was completely dead. The Rhine River became the permanent border. This one battle literally drew the map of Europe for the next 2,000 years.
Now, Rome absolutely wanted revenge. A general named Germanicus led some brutal campaigns back into the area a few years later, and he even got back 2 of the lost legionary eagles. But these were punishment raids, not reconquest. The strategic decision had been made in Rome. Germania just wasn't worth the price in blood.
So at the end of the day, this wasn't just another Roman loss. It was a genuine turning point in world history. It stopped the Roman Empire dead in its tracks, and in doing so, helped shape the future of Europe in ways we can still see today.
And that just leaves us with this incredible thought to chew on. What if? What if Varus had just listened to that warning? If Rome had gone on to conquer Germania, would people in Berlin be speaking a language that sounds more like Spanish or French today? It's one of history's most fascinating what-ifs, and it all started with one man's perfect betrayal in a dark German forest.